My parents gave their entire inheritance to my sister, the so-called golden child. 7 years later, they showed up at my door, wanting to meet my kids. Here's how I responded. Growing up, my sister was always the one who seemed to shine in my parents' eyes. She was smart, attractive, and talented, while I was often seen as just average. My parents constantly praised her achievements, while mine were barely noticed. It wasn't until I got older that I fully realized how unfair this had been. Despite the lack of encouragement, I worked hard, got accepted into a top university, graduated with honors, and built a successful career. But no matter what I accomplished, my parents never seemed impressed. They always found ways to downplay my efforts, while continuing to celebrate everything my sister did. When my grandparents passed away, I thought maybe this would be the moment things changed. They had left behind a significant inheritance, and I hoped my parents would finally acknowledge me by dividing it fairly between my sister and me. But I was wrong. They gave it all to her, without hesitation. I was deeply hurt. It wasn't just about the money, it was the years of being overlooked and treated as if I didn't matter. After that, I made the difficult decision to distance myself. I couldn't pretend everything was fine anymore. A few years later, I met my husband, and we had a small, heartfelt wedding surrounded only by people who truly cared about us. I chose not to invite my parents or my sister, knowing deep down they wouldn't be bothered either way, and I wanted that day to be filled with genuine love and support. Eventually, my husband and I were overjoyed to learn we were expecting twins, a boy and a girl. Though the pregnancy was tough, he was there for me every step of the way, and when our babies arrived, it was the happiest moment of my life. Holding them for the first time felt like pure magic. They were tiny, delicate, and perfect. As our children grew, we focused on creating a warm and loving home for them, making sure they always felt valued and supported. My parents and sister were not part of our lives, but honestly, we were at peace with that. Then on an ordinary Saturday afternoon, I heard an unexpected knock at the door. It was them, my parents, standing there with cheerful expressions, as if no time had passed. They said they just wanted to meet their grandchildren. In that moment, I felt a whirlwind of emotions, anger, sadness, confusion, and disbelief. After 7 years of silence, they showed up unannounced, asking to see the very family they had ignored all this time. They spoke about missing me and not wanting to lose the chance to know their only grandchildren. Despite their words, I knew I couldn't allow them to step back into our lives on their terms. I couldn't let them come and go whenever it suited them, especially after all the years of distance and pain. So I made the choice that felt right. I protected my family. I asked them directly why, after all this time, they suddenly wanted to meet my children. For a moment, they hesitated, but then my father finally spoke, his voice quiet. Your sister, he said. She's decided she doesn't plan on having children. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. After all those years, all the favoritism, all the choices they had made in her favor, and now, the daughter they'd given everything to had decided not to have kids. Suddenly, they were standing at my door, hoping to connect with mine. Deep down, I knew the truth. They weren't there because they missed me. They were there because they wanted access to the grandchildren they believed they'd never have through my sister. It felt less like love and more like convenience. At that moment, I finally found the strength to say what I had held inside for years. I told them they couldn't see my children. That choice had been made the day they chose to walk away from me, and I wasn't going to let them reappear just because their plans with my sister didn't turn out the way they had hoped. They tried to argue, to convince me, to explain, but I stood firm. I was done with the empty words, the excuses, and the emotional games. I had built a life full of love and stability without them, and I wasn't about to let them disrupt it now. When I closed the door, I felt a wave of peace wash over me. For once I had stood up for myself and, more importantly, for my children. I made it clear that you don't get to step back into someone's life only when it's convenient for you. When my husband came home, I told him everything that had happened. He was just as shocked as I was. We sat down together, talking through every word exchanged, and agreed that we didn't want our children to grow up under the influence of people who had caused so much pain. He told me I had done the right thing and reminded me that we were a team, no matter what. We also discussed how we'd handle any future situations. Together, we decided to keep clear boundaries and continue focusing on the family we had built, the one filled with care and mutual respect. Even as days went by, the encounter stayed on my mind. The anger, the hurt, the betrayal, it all lingered. It became painfully clear that the only reason they came back into my life was because my sister had chosen a different path, and they felt entitled to a relationship with my kid. After years of silence, they had the nerve to show up as if nothing had ever happened. No matter how much I tried to make sense of it, I couldn't understand the selfishness. I had spent years longing for their approval, even when they had always placed my sister first, and now they expected me to forget it all and open the door without question. That realization only strengthened my decision. I would protect my family from that cycle. Update. Unfortunately, their visit wasn't the end of it. A few weeks later, my husband received a phone call from my mother. She was emotional, crying and begging him to let her see her grandchildren. She talked about how much she missed them, and how she believed they deserved to know their grandparents. But my husband stayed calm, respectful, and firm. He explained that this wasn't the right time, and that we had made our choice as a family. I had already made our decision clear, but my mother kept insisting, using emotional pressure in hopes of changing my husband's mind. She said things like, "We don't have much time left, please don't keep us away from them," and even, "Your wife is being unfair, don't you care about your parents?" When that didn't work, they tried to persuade him with offers, suggesting they could help us buy a new car or even contribute to our children's education, but only if we allowed them to meet the kids. My husband politely but firmly rejected their offers, and ended the conversation. When he told me about the call, I was furious. The idea that they thought they could buy access to our children was deeply upsetting. It wasn't about love or making amends. It was about getting what they wanted, regardless of the harm they had caused. I felt both shocked and hurt by their attempt to manipulate him. It was painfully clear they were not there to rebuild a real relationship, but were willing to say or do anything to get close to our kids. Their sudden interest wasn't about family, it was about their own desire. The fact that they offered bribes and tried to turn my husband against me felt like a deep betrayal. They didn't seem to respect that he and I were a united team, raising our children together. Instead, they tried to drive a wedge between us and use our children as bargaining chips. The whole thing left me feeling deeply unsettled. I knew right then, I would not give in. Allowing them into our lives would only send the message that their behavior had no consequences. They had made their choices long ago, and now they had to live with. My husband and I spent a long time talking about everything, and we both agreed, we had to stand strong. We would not allow anyone, even family, to manipulate us or our children. Our family was built on love and respect, and we would protect it at all costs. Comment section reactions. NTA not the problem. I completely support your decision. Your parents have shown again and again that they don't respect you or your life choices. It's not fair for them to try to re-enter your world just because they want to meet your children. You're right to put your family and your peace of mind first. ETA, you might be in the wrong. I think you should at least consider hearing them out. They're still your family, and holding on to anger forever might only hurt you in the long run. Maybe there's more to their side of the story, and your kids could benefit from having more loving people in their lives. NTA, honestly, your parents and sister don't sound like supportive people at all. The fact that they tried to offer money just to see the kids is truly disappointing. You're absolutely right to keep them away. Don't let guilt change your mind. During the pandemic, I realized I no longer needed to meet society's unrealistic beauty standard. Before, I used to dress up to perfection, always wearing full heavy makeup, the kind you'd see on influencers like James Charles or Nikki Tutorials. I made sure my skin looked flawless and smooth, and don't even get me started on the time I spent on my hair. But when I stopped putting in that level of effort for everyday tasks, my husband, who's 30, wasn't too pleased. He admitted he preferred the way I used to look, and even said he felt embarrassed going out with me now, calling me lazy for dressing more comfortable. I explained that I still dressed up for special occasions, like dinner dates and important events, but I no longer wanted to wear makeup and heels just to run errands or clean the house. He argued that it wasn't that difficult to put on a little makeup or to shave regularly. So I challenged him. If he thought it was so easy, he should go through the same routine I did. Confidently, he agreed. After all, if I'd done it for years, how hard could it be? That's when he discovered just how uncomfortable and time-consuming the process really was. He learned firsthand how painful waxing can be. He realized how much time and effort it takes to wash, dry, and style long, thick hair. He also understood the discomfort of wearing certain clothes all day, just for the sake of appearance. And since he wanted me to wear makeup, I applied a subtle, natural-looking look on him, just enough to highlight how much work goes into even the simple makeup routines. By the end of the day, he finally admitted he hadn't realized how much effort I put into my appearance all those years. I told him to imagine what women go through who also get fillers or Botox on top of it all. He laughed and said he was glad I wasn't that high maintenance, We both shared a laugh, and I felt like I had made my point. But when he told his sisters about our little experiment, they found it hilarious and fully supported my perspective. They also felt it was about time more men understood the lengths some women go to for their looks. However, once he mentioned it to his mother, things took a turn. She began calling and texting me, accusing me of mistreating her son, insisting it was a woman's duty to always look her best for her husband, and warning me that if I didn't change, I shouldn't be surprised if he left or cheated. I chose to ignore her comments, and thankfully my husband stood up for me and defended my choices, which only made her more upset. Now I wonder, did I take things too far? I genuinely only wanted to prove my point. The truth is, my mother-in-law never really liked me. She had hoped her son would marry someone tall, blonde, blue-eyed, the typical Instagram model type, someone she could show off. Instead, he married me, a short Latina who doesn't share her views or priorities. Top comments. NTA, be careful OP. Your husband sounds like a rare kind of man. Not only was he willing to walk in your shoes, but he actually admitted when he was wrong. Don't overuse this superpower, or it might lose its magic. NTA, you're married to a wonderful man. Sure, at first he had some outdated expectations, but he listened, learned, and most importantly, he stood up for you. That's more than many people can say. NTA, the fact that your husband didn't get angry and run to his mother right away shows a lot of maturity. You two handled this in the best possible way, and honestly, it's a small win for anyone who's ever felt pressured to meet impossible beauty standards. I told my ex a long time ago that he should prioritize our children's interests, just as much as he does his stepkids. But he ignored me. A few months back, our kids showed interest in attending a particular summer day camp. When I brought it up to him, he flat out refused, saying they needed to go to the camp his stepkids had chosen because he wasn't going to make his life more complicated. In the end, I offered to cover 100% of the cost for the camp they actually wanted, which finally convinced him at least somewhat. But just last week, he asked me to take his stepkids for 3 hours every day after camp, from now until the camp ends. He claimed that I had made his life harder by insisting our kids go to a different camp, and that I should help him out. I told him no, our biological kids come to me after camp, while his stepkids go to a paid babysitter. Apparently he now feels that's unfair and thinks I should take them too, so they can save the babysitting cost. I reminded him that I was the one who paid for our kids' camp, because he was more concerned with convenience than with what made them happy. I made it clear I wouldn't be taking his stepkids on top of that. Now he's accusing me of creating division between the kids and preventing them from bonding as siblings. I completely disagree. My kids have made it clear they don't want extra time with their step-siblings, and I know that without a doubt, but he insists I'm the one causing the problem, calling me selfish and implying that I'm treating his stepkids unfairly, just because they're just kids and their family too. So am I the bad guy for refusing to babysit his stepchildren after camp? Top comments. NTA, you've gone above and beyond to ensure your kids get to participate in activities they actually enjoy, rather than being forced to do whatever is most convenient for your ex. If he finds it hard balancing all the kids' schedules, maybe he should reflect on the responsibilities that came with marrying into a blended family. Your priority is and should be your own children, not helping him avoid paying for childcare. NTA, you are not a co-parent to your ex's stepchildren. He is responsible for managing his household and the commitments he made when he remarried. You've done the right thing by setting clear boundaries, and your children deserve to have their interests respected just as much as his stepkids do. NTA, your ex sounds like he's using emotional guilt to get you to do what's convenient for him, not what's best for your kid. Good for you for standing your ground and not letting him manipulate the situation. Just because he wants to blur the lines between his bio kids and stepkids, doesn't mean you are obligated to go along with it. Honestly, the more I think about it, the more it frustrates me. My ex seems to believe that I should just bend over backward to accommodate his new life choices, as if I'm somehow responsible for making his blended family run smoothly. I understand that his stepkids are innocent in all of this, but so are my kids, and they shouldn't have to sacrifice their interests or comfort just because he chose to remarry and expand his household. It's not my responsibility to fix the imbalance he's created by prioritizing convenience over consideration. I've always tried to encourage my kids to be polite and respectful toward their step-siblings, but forcing extra time together won't magically create a bond where none exists. Relationships grow naturally when people feel comfortable, not when they're pushed into awkward situations to satisfy an adult's guilt or ego. At the end of the day, I have one focus: ensuring my children are happy, healthy, and respected. If my ex wants his stepkids cared for, He should make arrangements himself instead of trying to guilt me into doing it. I'm not their parent, and I won't be pressured into playing the role just to make his life easier.